as an outcome. And then
Or maybe put it on the shelf there.
the other thing that's similar to that is
No. Or maybe use the little stand right there.
or the rail in against the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. Actually, this is the one. We should move this. Okay.
Again, I can't.
Well, let's first talk about the 22 bus. And then
All right.
Okay. So the 22 bus. So why are they
Closing it down
so they're closing for 4 hours
for budget reasons.
for budget reasons? Okay.
In other words, these are the numbers that I heard quoted. I have no way of knowing, but that overall for just normal transportation, that time overnight, 120 people use it, but 45.
Wait, 120 people use it from 1 to 4?
No, just I'm not sure about that. Maybe all night at all to get to work or get home from work.
I don't think I've ever seen that many people on the bus ever.
Well, no, not at one
Yeah.
time,
Oh, I
but
see.
in the course of it, I'm guessing would make it make sense. I just, but and then the other number was 45 sleeping on it. So I would assume that, assuming any of this is true, that 45 would be of the 120. But to me,
Actually, it reminds me of there's a company, I forgot the name of the company, but what they do is they have buses that go from LA to San Francisco and back. And it travels overnight. And what you do is you actually sleep on it. So instead of flying there to a hotel, you get on the bus, you sleep. Like literally they have beds in there.
Oh, beds too.
Yeah.
Well, this I find out. I haven't traveled that much in my life, but people who do travel, this is a very normal way to travel. For instance, in Europe, you're in this country and you want to now go and visit in this country, and there's an overnight train. You can do just what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
So you sleep in the train, it saves you one night in a hotel.
Yeah.
You have to get there anyway. Of course, you might rather have stayed in a hotel rather than have to not really get a good night's sleep, but you're saving that money, and so people. So it's a normal thing. You may not agree with this, and there are plenty of people who don't agree with this, but there's some people who do say that in this country, the Constitution implies an obligation on the county. Now, Palo Alto is not a county, but the obligation on the county is to provide shelter and food for people. Necessities of life. These are an obligation. You can't just say, well, that's too bad that you can't have a place to sleep or a meal. So, is one argument that, again, people disagree. But Cubberley used to be a commons. It used to be a resource of the whole community for I don't know how many years before my time, but it was. And then in 2011, were you here in 2011?
I moved to Palo Alto in 2004.
Okay, so you perhaps remember it was an issue before the city council and discussed about taking cars away from homeless people. You couldn't sleep in a vehicle.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and if you were eating a sandwich, that might be too much like living in it. If I took a nap in my car rather than, I'm too tired to drive, so I pull over. That might, all these things that really are quite good things for the whole society.
Yeah.
And certainly I would say the right of a person. One of the things I said to the city council at the time is homelessness is primarily a problem of lack of resources. If you are proposing to subtract resources from the equation, you don't get it. You're solving some other problem, perhaps very well intentioned, perhaps very intelligently, but you're not doing anything to solve homeless problems. In fact, in some ways, you're increasing them. If the city were a little more enlightened, they would think like this. They would think, homeless people don't have a place to sleep. We've got these junk cars. How about if we fix them up, or at least make them available to homeless people, or fix them up so people can get to work and pick up their kids and do things that people need cars for. There's been entirely too much of what I call the stray cat theory. If we put out a saucer of milk for stray cats, they'll keep coming. So we've got to build parks without bathrooms. So not only was San Francisco Creek parkified, but bathrooms were built without, parks in the the city were built without bathrooms. And as a grandparent or a parent, you can't really take your kids to the park like that, because one kid has to pee and you all have to go home, and then the next kid does, and you don't spend any time in the park, you spend all your time traveling. And people need bathrooms. So now it seems, again, I can't really read the city's mind. The city doesn't have a mind, but it's as if that philosophy has been dropped, and now parks are built with bathrooms. And in fact, older parks that didn't have bathrooms have been retrofitted with bathrooms, which I think is a good thing. In other words, I get the philosophy of beggar thy neighbor. This is Adam Smith's mercantilism, and I get it. But it's just not practical. If you make Palo Alto so unlivable, so mean, so inhospitable, it's not going to be hospitable for anybody, you know. And I have a number of issues, but Cubberley, I do think what used to be a resource has been taken away for the whiter people, the wealthier people.
So on the 22,
Yeah.
so that decision was BPA's, right?
Yes, but they want input from the people, which is a good thing, a right thing.
Okay, and when is that supposed to happen?
There's going to be more. There's going to be a meeting on it in February. I'm not sure. I saw it in the paper, but I can't tell you exactly.
Okay.
But that's one issue.
Okay.
And may I mention the Cubberley issue?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Actually, one second.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. And by the way, I want to thank you also. You've taken certain positions that I and other people in WILF, Women's International League of People, we really approve of things like your questioning the necessity of 1.5 million or whatever the proposal was for rehabbing the council chamber. You know, you were right. And there was another issue. I can't remember what it was, but you took a position that I thought was brave and enlightened. There was some other issue that you took a position that I and the rest of us didn't agree with. I don't remember what it was, but 2 out of 3 is not bad.
Well, I mean, the council chambers, I spent a lot of time in there, so, you know, personally, it'd be great to have fancy chambers, and, you know, as a council member, you know, I definitely, I would benefit from it. But the problem is, and the reason why I don't think it's worth spending $2 million on it, is that I don't think it helps the actual people that live here, right, or work here. You know, it helps maybe the council members and the staff, but in terms of actually benefiting the public, you know, I think it's questionable.
If I'm just making this up as you're speaking, but and I know you didn't intend this, but if you took that 2 million, did you say, and put that towards the VTA budget, and now homeless people would have a place to sleep at night, that would be a good use of it. But I agree with you. Why spend that on people who don't really need it? You all can get, it seems to me, get by fine with the equipment you've got there, and it's decent enough. It's not like a slum or something. So I agree with you 100%.
It's one of the nicest. I mean, I've been to many other council chambers in the area. We have one of the nicest, actually. If you look at our council chambers compared to other cities, it's like beautiful. I mean, it's just very grand, right? So, I mean, ours already is really nice.
The architecture of courts has to be imposing. It's built big to make you, the person, feel that you're in the presence of majesty and power, and you better pay attention.
Well, I mean, if you go to other cities, right, their council chambers aren't as nice as ours, right? And some of these other cities are much bigger than us.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's why I just wonder, like, are we using our money efficiently?
See, I think that's a wonderful thing to campaign on as an individual or as a city. We, Palo Alto, would much rather, we thought about it, we considered we would much rather spend money on the bus for homeless people or whatever use of it, anything that does benefit people. I find it extremely, that would be a positive thing. I consider it an extremely negative thing. That I'm sure you're aware of this, you were here during this, when the city council allowed itself to meet privately with John Arriaga about property he wanted to acquire, that it seems to me any 8th grader could realize there's no way he could legally have that property, which is why he was having a private meeting and wheeling and dealing. But even that meeting got held is not something to be proud of. In fact, I feel as a parent, as a grandparent, as an educator, I'm a teacher.
What do you teach?
I teach everything, but right now I'm teaching special ed. That's my license. The last 3 years I've been subbing in everything.
Well, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
You been in Palo Alto School District or?
Well, I'm trying, my grandchildren go to Gun. I have two granddaughters in Gun, and, I keep meaning to, but I haven't. I'm gonna sign up to sub there.
Oh.
But I'm really looking for full-time, and I interviewed in, Ravenswood last week, and I've worked there before, and I loved it. I've never been treated so well in a school as I was in Cesar Chavez Elementary School, and they liked me too, so it was, no downside.
Yeah.
So,
The world needs great teachers, so.
yeah, and we need men in elementary school, because typically kids see only women teachers in elementary school, and it's like, it's only a women's profession. A man wouldn't do this. Well, yes, would do it, and can do it well sometimes, so. Also, I'd like to apologize for the internment of Japanese people.
Oh.
That's, my father used to say, and I can't disagree with him, there's nobody we've ever treated worse than the American Indians. And I think that's true. But the Japanese internment was pretty bad, that's really, an embarrassment. But every time I meet anybody from any other culture, I feel I have to apologize. I don't care what, because we are either right now doing something in that country, or we did, or we did and will. We don't understand, we blame Muslims for being terrorists. Over 1,000 years we've been exploiting Muslim countries. I mean, there are many things wonderful about this country, and I would never, be negative about this country, but I do wish we were a little more broad-minded. We don't learn other languages. We think, well, learn to speak English. We're the United States. Well, it would be better for us to learn some other languages too.
No, that's true, that's true. So, talk about Cubberley, so.
Well, it just should be available to the people. For instance, there used to be, as Jim Keen so memorably phrased it, a de facto homeless center, which I think is something to be proud of, not apologize for. So, once again, it should become at least available for homeless camping on the ground and in vehicles. And the bathrooms should be reopened. Those bathrooms are supposed to be open. I used to, typically, when I was homeless, I slept in my car, in some shelters too, but typically my car at Happy Donuts, behind Happy Donuts.
Where's Happy Donuts?
Happy Donuts is a prime resource for homeless people. It's on El Camino. Do you know where, there's a hotel on the right side of El Camino as you're going north. It's got an extreme roof. It's,
This is in Palo Alto?
yeah, it's a Ventura neighborhood. I don't know if you know,
I know where Ventura is.
okay, well, Ventura Avenue comes into El Camino.
Hi.
And
Are you here for office hours? Oh, okay.
Right outside?
What time is your office hours? Oh, it's 2:14 right now.
Yeah.
So,
I should just wait here?
Yeah,
There's
you
no
can.
lobby? Okay.
yeah, no problem.
if you come up Ventura to El Camino, Happy Donuts is immediately to your left at that intersection.
Okay.
And it's, even when I visited here before I was homeless, it was a 24-hour, and still is a 24-hour donut shop. And the business plan is simple and perfect. If you have a donut shop, people put in orders, you know you're going to need donuts from 6 o'clock in the morning. So you have to have your ovens going from 2 a.m. on to do this.
Yeah.
So you do. You just never shut them down. You have them on. So if you're going to have the ovens on anyway, that means you have an electric bill that's going on and you have heat being produced. Why not have the doors open, and if people want some coffee or tea, so you can, what it amounts to is anybody can spend the night there. You don't like put your, don't lay out on a table.
Yeah.
You put your head down, but you can spend the whole night until 6 a.m. and then they wake you up and you have to leave because the regular customers are coming in. So it's a great resource because there really aren't that many places. Another reason why the 22 bus is important, there aren't that many places you can go. If you are homeless, you don't really belong anywhere. So anywhere you happen to be standing or sitting, you can be asked, well, why are you, given a hard time? So
So, let me ask you this. Given that at one point you were homeless, maybe this hasn't been recent, so you may not have a current perspective, but like, it sounds like there's a dearth of or lack of homeless shelters. Is that a fair assessment?
Not only that, it's getting worse. There are fewer shelter beds. I've been here homeless, say, close to 10 years, off and on, and There are fewer shelter beds now. When I started, there was a shelter called Claire Mateo on the border of San Mateo County and Santa Clara County. It was formerly a mansion, became the state owned it, was given to whatever. It was a shelter, a woman's shelter, but then it needed to be rehabbed. It ran down. But that was like 7 years ago. I haven't heard anything. Now I could do the research myself. But
So right now we're in a current relatively booming economy.
yes,
Which means there should be less unemployment. So there should be less.
it should be less what?
Unemployment, right?
Yeah, there is. I would
Yeah.
say.
And then there should be also like I would imagine that most of the homeless shelters should be better funded now than before. But it sounds like that's not what's happening.
Well, to be fair, this goes back to 2014-ish, when the decision was made and public that the armory in Sunnyvale was going to be torn down, and they were going to build apartment houses. I stayed in the army. I thought it was fine. I didn't want it to get torn down. Okay, but here's the bad part. The bad part is that the county and the city of Sunnyvale didn't make any immediate plans. There were things discussed. People brought stuff up at meetings. I heard. I wasn't at these meetings, but there was no impetus. There was no drive. It wasn't like the people at those meetings, people who were elected and people who were employed, had any skin in the game. They had places to stay. They had jobs. They were going to get paid whether they sheltered homeless people or didn't shelter. And here's what they said. This was really bad. I try to be a very open person, and in my work as a teacher, it works out best that way if I can not make up my mind too quickly. And so I would never say this without what I feel is evidence, but I was, to my face, told things like, we can't work on shelter, which is what I wanted, or replacement for you. We only get a certain amount of money from HUD, and HUD is very interested, totally dedicated to housing first. So we have to be dedicated. We don't have the money or the wherewithal or the intelligence or what they didn't have. Well, we can't. We can't focus on long-term housing, which we have to, and short-term shelter at the same time. I find this an intelligent person doesn't make a statement like that. Not even an 8th grade. I mean, if you've got a serious 8th grader. So Ray Muller, who's the mayor of Menlo Park, said this to me. He was Joe Simidian's chief of staff at the time. But this was the same verbiage from Keeley. I don't know if you know Keeley. He's in charge of Office of Supportive Services of the county now. At that time, he was assistant. But he's very intelligent. He doesn't miss a trick. So for an intelligent person to tell me this means to me, if it's true, if it's accurate, there's either a lack of funding or a lack of intellectual ability or a lack of political will. Now this is Silicon Valley. There's really not a shortage of money or people willing to take a chance. Look at Theranos. Or lack of gumption and intellectual ability to take on a challenge.
Can you tell me like how? It's something I didn't know, but can you tell me how much less homeless shelters are there, or beds? I guess maybe that's what you measure. How many
Shelter
less
beds, yes. I think it comes down to
how much less is there like now versus like last year or the year before? Do you know? Like,
that's a good question. I don't know.
you said there's less, right? I'm actually surprised to hear that there's less. And there's
Well,
less availability.
I'm able to say that, and I can show you the numbers, like I, told you about Claire Mateo. But I don't know how intentional that is, and I don't know, and it's not the whole story. Here's a little more of the story to give you a complete answer. When the armory was not being replaced, December of 2013, 5 people died in Palo Alto of exposure, homeless people.
What year is this?
What was that?
What year is that?
December of 2013.
Okay. 5 people died?
5 people died in Palo Alto. It's unusual. It was a very high, number.
Yeah.
But some of them are people that have been out on the street for many, many years. And, you can only. I found this out when I was homeless from going to the doctor. when you're homeless, your mortality is 4 to 40 times worse than if you took the same person and took them out of being homeless. So anyway, and these were, some of them were women too. And so 5 people died. So this was a headline in a story in the Mercury. So I wrote a comment to it. Turned out to be 5,000 words. And my basic point in that article, my comment was, if 5 people die this year when the armory is open and it's planned to be closed, how many people do you think are going to die next year when there's no armory open? You know, is this what you want? Is this the legacy you want? This is what you on the city council want to be what happened on your watch? Is this what we all want to be part of the history of Palo Alto? Really? You know, and of course, people said, no, that's not what we want. And I believe my article, my comment started the conversation, for which I'm very grateful, because there were meetings.
How many people die regularly every year in Palo Alto?
That's a good question, I don't know.
Okay.
You know who I'd ask though is Momentum for Mental Health, and other agencies that are supporting. There are agencies or I shouldn't say agencies, organizations that are supposedly the helping service organizations, but truly, and I'm telling you this from my own experiences and other people's experiences, is they're not always so helpful. Sometimes, and I'll do the best I can, but this message has been delivered. I'm behind the counter, you're the homeless person. I'm not so interested in doing something for you. What are you going to do for me? What have you done for me lately? And on and on and on about what I need. And you know what? So you want to get into the hotel design? Okay, come every week and show me that you're interested. Report every week. And if you do that, if you show me that respect, then we'll talk about your needs.
So one thing I'm really curious about, and if I'm not sure if you're willing to share, but how did you manage? Because a lot of people who become homeless kind of fall into a crevice and don't work their way out. How did you make it out?
Well, I was in a crevice. I was in a very bad crevice. My mother had gotten quite ill. My father had already died, and I moved back home to take care of my mother. And I did. I lived there all the time and took care of her. She had Alzheimer's and macular degeneration and heart disease. So this pissed off my brother a lot, the younger brother. And didn't like all this. He accused me of robbing my mother and poisoning her with all my vitamins and supplements and health food. And so she thanked me. She said, you know, and I know you're not supposed to be able to cure Alzheimer's, and I don't say I did cure Alzheimer's, but she got a hell of a lot better. Her symptoms when we started were bad in a number of ways, and they got a lot better. She got to gratitude. She got to say, we're going for a walk in the yard. She goes, Chuck, look at the sun on those leaves. We're so lucky to have that. And I was fucking blessed that she could look at it like that, because she didn't always look at it. She had a very dark way of looking at things before, earlier. So anyway, I wasn't working. I'm taking care of her, and my brother took me to court. I lost custody of her. That hurt a lot. I didn't have a place to live. That hurt a lot. Didn't have a job. That hurt a lot. My niece died on a vacation on Cape Cod, and my children were living here in California. They came back to New York for the funeral, but they wouldn't visit me. And I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral because of animosity between my brother and me. So that hurt a lot, because even though I'm the bad guy, I still needed closure, but I didn't get it. And then my chairman at my school where I was teaching wouldn't let me take time off to go to the airport with my kids before they went back. And my kids are grown kids, maybe your age. They didn't want me to do that either. So all this hurt, and I anyway, and I had real estate, and the real estate crash. So I had all these things. I felt like a failure in many ways. I mean, I was a financial failure, definitely. So I was suicidal. I really was. I bought like razors and magic marker and try to fix, because I was living with this woman. I didn't want, I'm not going to have her come home and find my bloody body on her rug. So how am I going to do this? And this is very complicated. I finally decided, it's so complicated to do this. I am a screw up, but I do some things right. Some people see value in me. I think, and again, dying in any kind of decent way was so complicated. I said, I'm gonna decide, there's a thing in recovery, I'm sure you've heard, that some people have to hit bottom before they can come. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna take that little rule, and I'm gonna decide that this is bottom, and it's all gonna be up from here. So I said, okay, well, how would I do that? What makes me happy? And I like to act and do comedy, so I went to Craigslist, I found open mics, I found auditions, I did that, not that I made any money, but it was much more fun than sitting around feeling sorry for myself. And so I did that. I became 65 in the middle of that, so my bus fare and subway fare was cut in half. My career expenses were cut in half.
Sure.
So that was good, but I still wanted more. And I said to myself, well, what would really make me happy? Playing with my grandchildren who were out here. So that's why I came out here, and I saw this as a move to really make me happy. I figured I'd stay for some period of time. I didn't know what that meant exactly, but some period of time until I felt I'd gotten enough joy from playing with them. But I didn't realize that, first of all, I wouldn't have an easy, I thought I had done enough research before I came out here that I had opportunities. I'd done home health care, I'd find some place, but none of that worked out. So I ended up staying in my car. But plus, I didn't realize how bad the relationship was between my kids and me. So my daughter, like I say, hasn't let me see her sons in the 9 years I've been here. My son does let me see his daughters sometimes, and like today now after I see you, the littlest one, she's 6.
Sure.
She's Japanese, and my son was married to a Korean woman, but they're divorced, and now he and this Japanese woman have Naomi. She called me up recently to ask me how old she was, and I said, "You're 5." She said, "No, I had a birthday, I'm 6." She wanted to make sure I got this information. So I said, okay, and I understood what that meant. What that meant is, I need a present.
Yeah.
So I, delivered one.
Is your son Nick Robbins?
I'm sorry?
Is your son Nick Robbins?
No, David Jagoda.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, well, very, very interesting. Okay, we have only a couple minutes left here.
Did I answer you well enough about how I got out of it?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I was wondering because I know it's got to be really hard, right?
It is.
I think that it's really important for us as a society to make sure that there's ways for people to get out of this, right? I think that's really, really important.
The downtown street team is a great way. I did not think so at first. Friends of mine said, "Come on, you gotta try." I said, "No, I don't."
Yeah.
But I was stubborn for at least a year. But then I joined, and man, it's been great for me. For women, it's different for women. Their self-image is much worse than ours, and they really feel worthless and bad, etc., etc. So the downtown streets team had, at least I don't think so, an empowerment course, and I didn't take it, but women who did, they'd ask them at meetings, "So you're taking the empowerment course, so how's that going?" And these women go, "Oh man, I feel so much better. I have control of my life. I feel so much better about myself." So there are ways, but unfortunately, there are problems. People have their own demons, their own paranoid fantasies of people that are out to get them. People who are out to get them, and they can't go to the police because the police are part of the conspiracy. Anyway, you were going to ask me something.
Oh no, I think the next person is ready, so we gotta move on. But Chuck, thank you for coming out here. Really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your work. Keep it up.
Okay, and maybe we can work together on some things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, Raj, does he have to go that way, or which way?
I think the next person is.
Oh, here. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank
Keep
you.
up your good work.
I'm gonna try. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Bye now. And you made a videotape of our talk?
Yeah. You could go to refer it, comment on it, share it, please. Yeah.
Where can I access it?
It's if you go to www.greattanaka.org.
Okay.
Yeah, and then.
I appreciate that, not just for my ego, but for my colleagues. They'll be glad to hear what we discussed.
No, I think, the reason why we do this is it's kind of like you were saying about like Ariana, right, and having private conversation. I actually believe transparency is really important, especially in government, because we're entrusted with responsibility from the public to do good, right? And so I think, for me, I try to do as much as we can publicly, because I think it's something which it builds trust, right?
I used to live in Nebraska, and I worked for the student newspaper at the University of Nebraska, and I became friends with this guy who had also worked, but but then he'd gone to Washington to be his press secretary for James Exxon. He became senator from. And he told me that when Exxon got to had his office, the first thing he did was have the door taken off and put in storage.
Good point. Open door, right?
Yeah.
No door. Okay.
No
Thank you.
door. Take it easy.
Okay, take it easy.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought there was a lobby or something.
No, we just moved. I used to have it in my other office, and we just
Okay.
moved to this office.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because insurance reasons.
Oh, okay.
Oh, by the way, Raj.
Yeah, hi,
Hello.
Henrietta. Hi.
Nice to
We've
meet
been
you.
talking on the phone a little bit.
Yeah, typically.